listening to the DolphinsTalk.com podcast, the most listened to daily Miami Dolphins podcast on the internet.
Miami's got the Dolphins, the greatest of all.
Come on, Dolphins fans. Time to fins up.
We're in the air, we're on the ground, we're always in control. And when you say Miami, you're talking to my ball. Cause we're the Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins number one. Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins number one.
Good afternoon, Miami Dolphins fans. How are you today? And thank you for listening to the post-game wrap-up show as the Miami Dolphins had a big comeback victory week 1 against the Jacksonville Jaguars, 20-17. On a day the Dolphins didn't play their best football, but they got the win. And that's really all that matters at the end of the day. I am your host, Mike Oliva. Tom Ernest is my partner here today. How are you, Tom?
Oh, man. You want to talk about roller coaster of emotions for a week 1 game? I think I went through every single one watching this football game today. But like you said, at the very top, it doesn't matter how pretty or ugly it is. A win is a win. The Dolphins get a much needed win to start the season before that Thursday night matchup, which is going to be talked about a lot this week, obviously on our show and website. But we're going to talk about this Dolphins victory today over the Jacksonville Jaguars and everything that went on in this game, which there was a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot going on, and we're going to talk about it all on today's show. But before we get to any of that, today's show is brought to you by Caneswears. Caneswears is the place to go for officially licensed apparel for the Miami Dolphins, the Miami Heat, the Hurricanes, the Florida Panthers, and all of the professional and college teams in South Florida. Looking for the latest jersey, a gift, or the newest hat to hit the market for your favorite South Florida team? Check out Caneswear for their overwhelming selection of sports apparel. Located at 2655 South University Drive in Davie, Florida, Caneswear has it all. Not in South Florida? Don't worry. Visit caneswear.com to shop their inventory from the comfort of your home. And yes, they ship internationally as well. Caneswear.com is the spot that Miami fans shop. That's caneswear.com. Caneswear.com. Also, a quick shout out, Dolphins Talk Extra. If you're not on there yet, get on there. Go to patreon.com/DolphinsTalk. Either $3 a month or $5 a month. Bonus podcasts, bonus shows, contests, prizes, private message board. We got it all. So check that out at Dolphins Talk Extra. Now, we know the big story of the day is the Tyreek Hill situation, him being arrested prior to the game. We're going to talk about that at the end of the podcast. We don't want that to sort of overshadow what took place on the field today, because I know most people are more interested in the game. So we'll talk about the Tyreek Hill situation at the end of the show, as there's a lot to talk about there. So we'll do that then. Inactives for this game. Nothing too shocking. I think the only surprising one was Ethan Bonner, because we heard Ramsey wasn't 100%. If you saw him play, Ramsey clearly wasn't 100% in the first half of this game. But Ethan Bonner was inactive. Storm Duck is clearly ahead of him on the depth chart. So there, Jaylen Wright, look, he's the 4th running back on this team. I know everyone gets excited for rookies. He's a 4th running back. He was inactive. Mohamed Kamara. Again, Jalen Phillips, I don't know how many snaps he officially played, but he looked pretty healthy out there. So Mohamed Kamara wasn't out there. Channing Tindall, he just stinks. And Andrew Meyer wasn't really needed, although the way the interior of this offensive line played today, maybe he should be. So, Tom, give me some big picture thoughts on this win here for the Dolphins.
Thank God it's week 1. I will say that. It was a very sloppy performance defensively in the first half. They gave up a ton of big plays. Coaching aspect, Mike McDaniel giving the ball up twice when he most likely, in most situations, you should be punting in those situations, handed the Jaguars some points in the first half. I will say this. I was on Anthony Weaver in the first half for the play calling. What a change in the second half. I love the adjustments that they made. They got after it. They got after Trevor Lawrence, forced turnovers, and it was a huge difference in the second half, because in the first half, the offense was inept. They could not execute. The interior of the offensive line was absolutely brutal. There were moments Tua was holding on to the football and took some unnecessary sacks, which will be corrected, again, early in the season, which is why I said at the top, this is week 1. It was not pretty, but the end result is all that matters. The Dolphins get a jump, they get a win, and now they can prepare for Buffalo on Thursday. But a lot of things will be corrected. The one thing that I really did like that came out of this game was as much adversity, and McDaniel says it. We saw it a lot on Hard Knocks during the season last year. Adversity is opportunity. The team faced adversity with the penalties, with giving up big plays, not executing on offense, and they won the football game. That is what good football teams do. So we'll take our lumps. We'll offer up the criticisms where they're needed, but they got a W. To me, that's all that matters, Mike.
Yeah. In this league, I say every year on this podcast, every year on this postgame show, never apologize for a win in this league. Wins are so hard to come by. Miami did not play its best football today, but they still came away with a win, and that's what you want from a quote-unquote good team, which Miami is. Good teams find ways to win on days they don't play their best football. Good teams win in the fourth quarter. Miami won the fourth quarter. This was sloppy football by the Miami Dolphins today. No doubt about it. Not going to make any excuses. There's a lot of fair criticisms here, and we're going to go through those fair criticisms. But the one thing I won't do is apologize for this team winning a game on a day where they didn't play well for the most part. And they're 1-0, and it's on to the Buffalo Bills. And a big part, here's the deal. The NFL, it's changed so much over the years. And I don't put this on the Dolphins per se, but we have to take it into account. The way the offseason goes with like mini camps, no hitting, this, that, and the other. Then you get to training camp, and Miami's the oldest team in the league. And I know some fans sort of, who cares? Well, this is why you care about this stuff. When you're the oldest team in the league, a lot of these guys are resting in the month of August. They're not even, forget any preseason games. Teron Armstead barely practiced. I mean, he did some reps here, 7-on-7 drills, but there was most days he didn't go. Waddle had some sort of injury. He didn't take off. He couldn't practice for 3 or 4 weeks. When he came back, he's in a red non-contact thing. Aaron Brewer had his hand broken. He didn't practice much. You got Tyreek, the final week or two of camp, had a hand issue. Jordan Poyer, he broke his thumb. And they gave a lot of veteran rest days to the guys like Ramsey with the hamstring. Like, this team hasn't really been a team this yet. And it took them a half or 3 quarters. And it wasn't even pretty in the second half, but that's what it took for them to sort of get on the same page and get going. And it's probably going to go into week 2, and it's probably going to go into week 3. You're not going to see the best football from this team probably till October, because a lot of guys in this team just haven't played together at all. Now, there's some other issues, which we'll talk about as we go through the show, with play calling. That's nothing to do with that. With Robert Jones and Liam Eichenberg, who've been here forever. They just aren't any good. And we'll talk about that stuff. But I'm not surprised it was sloppy football, because you got a whole new system on defense. You got a ton of new players on defense. You got some guys on offense who really haven't practiced, serious practice, in weeks, if not a month. So it's going to take time. But the Dolphins look, man, I'm shocked they won this game. Jacksonville was going in for a touchdown that probably would have ended it. They fumbled in the end zone. Great play by Holland. And then Doug Peterson going forward deep in his own time. Like, Jacksonville gave it away, but Miami didn't give it back. They took it. They took the gift Jacksonville gave them, and that's what good teams do. And, yeah, let's hope we can get a little fast start here. Now it's on to Buffalo on Thursday. But, Tom, let's go through this game.
All right. The Dolphins, the Jaguars won the toss and deferred. The Dolphins get the ball to open up the game. Back-to-back plays on the ground from Mostert and Achane, loses 3. It's 3rd and 13. And Tua hits Devon Achane on the right sideline for a 39-yard gain to the Jacksonville 44. Mike, I thought that was a very pretty play from Tua to Devon Achane, who did a great job running down the sideline, picking up chunk yards.
Yeah, Achane had a big day, and Achane's going to be a big part of this offense. Achane's just a whole nother level. He really is. So, yeah, the offense was sloppy for pretty much all day, but in the first half. But there's a couple guys who stood out, and Achane probably stands out above all with the day he had.
Yep. So Tua was sacked Actually, he took off and ran, but he was at the line of scrimmage, so it counted as a sack. 2nd and 10, found Tyreek Hill for 2 yards, and on 3rd and 8, incomplete from the Jacksonville 42-yard line. And Mike McDaniel, and we're going to talk about this a little bit here, on 4th and 8, decided to go for it from the Jacksonville 42. I know that's kind of like that iffy territory, but 4th and 8, they go for it, and it was Braxton Berrios who dropped a pass from Tua Tagovailoa, and his turnover on downs. I think you were in agreement, and I was in agreement on this, Mike. That's where you should either take a 5-yard delay and punt it, or just punt it from the 42 anyways and try to pin him back. What are your thoughts?
Here's the deal. And this is where, I'm probably never going to agree with Mike McDaniel on this, and he does it too much. There's a fine line between genius and stupid, and this is where he sometimes crosses that line. And I'm not saying that to be funny or mean. It's just sometimes it's just not worth the risk. It's week 1. It's the first series of the 2024 season. Let the game come to you. You're at home. It's week 1. Punt, play defense. Let's see where the game's going. You don't get it. You're giving the Jacksonville the ball with great field position. Did it bite them in the butt this time? No. Did it bite them in the butt later in the game? Yes. And that's the risk reward. Yeah, it might not bite you in the butt every time, but it does sometimes. And it's not worth it in the first half of week 1 at home. It's just let the game come to you. Let the game breathe. Let's see what's going to happen. These enormous calls he does when he does this, if it works your way, great. You just keep the drive going. If it doesn't work your way, you give momentum away. And it's tough when, you don't want to always be playing without momentum. You don't want to always be playing behind the 8 ball. I don't get it. Again, it didn't hurt him this time, but it did later when we'll talk about the next one he did.
Yep. They weren't hurt on this one. The first play for Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars was a naked boot, which Calais Campbell did not fall for. And on his first defensive play as a Miami Dolphin, gets a 13-yard sack on Trevor Lawrence. And on the very next play, hits Travis Etienne behind the line of scrimmage for a 1-yard loss. And after an incomplete pass to Evan Ingram, they were forced to punt. Mike, Calais Campbell making an impression on his very first series with the Dolphins at the paltry age of 38, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, look, he said a couple weeks ago when he spoke to the media, he's only good for about 30 to 40 snaps a game, but those are going to be 30 to 40 very good snaps a game. And that first series, that Dolphins defense came out like a bunch of wild animals. I mean, they were flying over the field, all over the field on that series. They were like an uncaged lion. They were just running everywhere. It was wild. I never seen them come out and play that aggressive for three plays. That was fun to watch. And Calais Campbell's a dude. He's going to be fine. Just don't overuse him and know what you got with him, and don't take, and he's going to be more than okay.
Absolutely. Dolphins get the ball at their 31-yard line. Starts with a 5-yard run from Raheem Mostert to Devon Achane, gets a reception for 3 yards. 3rd and 2. Tua hits Tyreek for 10 yards and a first down, getting near midfield, and the drive completely stalled out. And on 3rd and 10, Jonnu Smith was called for offside as he was lined up like a yard beyond the line of scrimmage. So that was a mental mistake, and it was a punt from Jake Bailey. I almost passed out, Mike. Punted from the Dolphins 47, boots it out at the Jacksonville 4-yard line. I had just about fainted at that point because Jake Bailey actually had a nice punt. Jake
Bailey had a fantastic day.
He did.
Give the devil his due. We give him a lot of crap, and well deserved. It's very well deserved.
It's 100% deserved.
But every now and then he'll have a day, and he had a day today. So give Jake Bailey credit. That was a great punt. Now, Jacksonville took it, went 96 yards and scored, but that's not Jake Bailey's fault. So.
No, it is not Jake Bailey's fault. Mike gave it away. 6-play, 96-yard drive. 3 minutes and 18 seconds went off the clock. It started with a Tank Bigsby 17-yard run and then followed it up with another 7-yard run. And then 2nd and 3 from the 28. Gabe Davis was wide open in the middle of the field for 20 yards and a first down. Travis Etienne went for 3, and then Lawrence goes for 8 and a first down to the Dolphins 41. Lawrence incomplete to Brian Thomas in the end zone on a deep ball, but Jalen Ramsey called for defensive pass interference. It was clear as day pass interference. There's no argument for me on this. He grabbed him, wrapped his arms up before the ball got there. It's letter of the law. And in the very next play, Travis Etienne for a 1-yard touchdown, and the Jaguars take a 7-0 lead. Mike, very sloppy defensive play calling and just poor tackling. They got muscled on that drive.
Yeah. Yeah. I think here's the deal. There's a couple things. Number one, Jacksonville's not a bad team. They gave this game away for a myriad of reasons, but they're not a bad team, and they have clearly improved their offensive line, and they are clearly strong on the other line as well. And they're just more physical than Miami. I mean, I know Miami won, but you watch this game, who's the more physical team? It's clearly Jacksonville, and they're going to have their drives where they just run it down people's throats. And for Miami, this is the thing they're going to have to figure out this season. Wilkins ain't walking through this door. There's a famous line. Raekwon Davis ain't walking through this door. They're going to have to figure out a way for some of these guys to – you're not going to replace someone like Wilkins, but offset it. Campbell goes a long way, but again, he's only giving you 30 to 40 snaps. Who else is going to step up on that line? We know Zach Sealer's great. Brandon Peely? Hand? Someone there is going to have to step up and be into a larger role in the run defense. Because you look at the numbers in this game for the run defense. I think Miami up until like the fourth quarter did nothing running the ball. I think Jacksonville for team stats, I'll call them up real quick here if I can find them. Rushing 128 to 81, and most of those 81 from Miami were like fourth quarter runs. Jacksonville 4.9 yards a carry. We knew this was going to be an issue, and it was week one. I mean, it's week one, so I don't overreact. But yeah, run Miami on both lines they got things to work on, Tom.
Yep, for sure. The Dolphins win 3-and-out after the touchdown drive by the Jaguars. Jaguars go 5-and-out. They punted the ball away after an incomplete pass on 39 from the 23. The Dolphins get the ball back, and once again, starting from the 21-yard line, Waddle for 12 on first down. He was injured, had to be taken out due to the concussion. Person in the booth said, check him out, because that ball was tipped, and it was just a very weird throw, but a great concentration catch by Jaylen Waddle, who was popped. He did come back later. We all know that. It's 1st and 10 from the 33 to an incomplete to Berrios, but a roughing the passer penalty, which was clear as day. Ball was gone for 2 seconds. And Josh, now Hines Allen, put his shoulder into Tua's shoulder to knock him down, and the flag was thrown. So it gets to the 48-yard line. A defensive offside on 2nd and 10 moves it to 2nd and 5 to the Jags 47 after a 2-yard run by Devon Achane. He goes for no gain, and it goes to 4th down, and Tua goes to Berrios for the second time in this first half. Goes to Berrios, and it goes incomplete, and the Dolphins turn it over on downs again. Same kind of situation. This one I liked a little bit better because it was 4th and 3 from the 45. I can live with that. It's when you go 4th and 8 that I have a little bit of a problem with from that kind of territory. Mike, your thoughts on another stall drive by the Dolphins?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's the first quarter, kind of what I said before. You got to let the game breathe a little bit. I mean, you got to see what's going on here, and you don't want to – you're down 7-0 at this point. Your offense is playing a little sluggish, not playing too well. They just scored a touchdown, Jacksonville, not too long ago. Why give them the ball close to midfield, essentially, for a chance to put you further behind the 8 ball, to make your day tougher than it needs to be? Again, Jake Bailey already had a good punt on this day. Let's punt. Let's live to play another down. And let's, see what happens. It's I wouldn't do it as much as he does. I know if you look at the analytics, you can find some spin. You can throw some numbers out there or say it's worth doing it. Here's the deal. Football's been being played for over 100 years. It ain't that complicated, folks. Sometimes you just punt and you just want to get to the next set of downs. And you don't want to give your opponent midfield field position in the first half of a week 1 game, which you're losing.
Jaguars take over at the 45. They start with Tank Bigsby again, goes for 8 yards, lost a yard on 2nd and 2. A false start pushes them to 3rd and 8, but Trevor Lawrence found Christian Kirk wide open in the middle of the field for 30 yards and a first down to the 23. Brian Thomas with a reception for 9 yards. ETN picks up the first. It is at the Dolphins' 13-yard line. ETN for 2. ETN for 3, 3rd and 5, a delay of game pushes him back to 3rd and 11 from the 14. And Trevor Lawrence found Brian Thomas in the back of the end zone to go up 14-0. On the Jaguars side of this, Brian Thomas is going to be a player, Mike. That kid, I think
we knew that at the draft.
Very good football player.
Look,
I wanted the Dolphins to draft him.
We all wanted to take him. And look, you look at Miami's wide receiver depth right now. They could have used him, but we also understood we didn't know what was going on with Jaylen Phillips, Chubb. Folks, this is probably his last year for Chubb in Miami. So having another edge rusher to go with Jaylen Phillips was needed. You could have went offensive lineman with the kid who went to Tampa Bay, Graham Barton, who hasn't been good all summer, by the way. But Thomas would have been a luxury pick, but I would have loved it because you put him next to Waddle and Hill. Hello. But yeah, he's a good player. He's a really good player. He's going to be.
Yep. So the Jaguars up 14-0, and the Dolphins finally get the offense going. A 12-play, 70-yard drive that took 5 minutes and 17 seconds. Started at the 30-yard line with a Devon Achane reception for 16 yards. Tua goes incomplete on 1st and 10. On 2nd and 10, Tua runs for an 11-yard gain and a first down. Mike, he said that he was going to be a little more nimble. He definitely looked it on that play right there.
Yeah, Tua looked fine. He missed some passes, but I'm not putting that on him. I'm going to put that on the offensive line, which I'm sure we'll talk about at some point.
Drops were a problem today, man.
Yeah, and drops. Look.
Week 1.
Well, no, why we're throwing to Braxton Berrios and Smythe when we went out and paid Jonnu Smith blows my mind. It's like, I thought the whole reason, not so much, Smythe over Smith makes no sense. We paid Jonnu Smith all this money. We paid him enough. He was supposed to be this new X factor, and we're running plays for Durham Smythe in the passing game. It blows my mind. That's why he is now Mike McAce to me. Until otherwise, it was a lot of confusing things there. Yeah.
So after the nice run from Tua, it's 1st and 10 from the Jags 43. Mostert for 2, incomplete. It's 3rd and 8, and Tua finds Jaylen Waddle for 20 yards and a first down to the 21-yard line. Incomplete to Durham Smythe, drop. 2nd and 10, Devon Achane for 9 yards, and it's 3rd and 1. Smythe with a false start. On 3rd and 5, Tua finds Tyreek Hill for 10 yards and a first down to the 6. It hit the 2-minute warning. Waddle gets a carry for 3 yards. 2nd and goal from the 3. Devon Achane gets a reception for 2 yards. Listen, they scored a touchdown on this drive, but the Achane reception was a touchdown. His knees were not down. Yeah. But they obviously, with this sped up review that they did, they said it's inconclusive. But what do you do on 3rd and goal when the guy's denied a touchdown? You give it back to him, let it get him in. And Devon Achane scores the Dolphins' first touchdown of 2024 with a 1-yard run, and the Dolphins back in it, Mike, 14-7. And what's the last thing you want to do with 1 minute left on the clock, Mike?
Well, hold on 1 second. I want to point out here, too, one thing we sort of glossed over. Mike McDaniel went the last 5 minutes of the first half with no timeouts. He's blown through timeouts. This team looked unprepared today, especially in the first half. Once again, I know they won, folks. Now, I'm not trying to rain on anyone's parade, but this is a win that there's a lot of – this was a sloppy win. Again, I'll take it, but, guys couldn't be lined up. Tua's telling guys where to line up. No one looked like they played the sport before. McDaniel's blowing through timeouts. He went the final 5 minutes of the first half with no timeouts. When you play the Bills next week, you cannot do that. When you play – quote-unquote good teams, you cannot do that. You're not going to get away with that. And plus, we also had a special teams mistake in the first half where, God bless Danny Crossman. New rules, same old Danny Crossman. You got a false start on a kick return where our guy moved early. We're the return team, and we moved early. I know the rules new, but you had all summer to work on this. This was sloppy football. And if that touchdown on 3rd down was with more than 2 minutes left, he couldn't have challenged it because he used all of his timeouts. He had nothing to challenge with. That's where this was not Mike McDaniel's finest hour. But, yeah, then we sort of get a touchdown around the board, and we let them march down the field in like a minute.
6 plays, 43 yards, 1 minute, 4 seconds for all it took for the Jaguars to get to the Dolphins' 34-yard line to kick a 53-yard field goal. They were playing zone defense, kind of a prevent defense, it looked like. I don't know until tomorrow when I watch some of the game film, but it was a very poor performance in the first half. Chunk play after chunk play, 18 yards, 20 yards, just to get him into the Dolphins territory. So Dolphins down 17-7 at the half. The sky was falling in my house. I don't know about you, Mike, but I was not happy. But it is halftime, Mike.
Yeah, and I don't have a sponsor yet. Maybe next week I will, though, as Tom knows I'm working on something.
Yep.
So I want to give a shout out to everyone at finheaven.com. Everyone go to finheaven.com, largest Miami Dolphins message board on the internet. Also a shout out to our friends at the I Am a Miami Dolphins fan Facebook page, run by the great Carlos Hernandez. If you're on Facebook, go to the I Am a Miami Dolphins fan Facebook page. And wherever you're listening to this podcast, whether Apple Podcast, Spotify, YouTube, iHeartRadio, Audible, Podbean, Podchaser, hit that subscribe button. We got a short week this week with the game on Thursday. We're going to have a lot of shows crammed in a short amount of time. So be on the lookout for that this week. A lot of podcasts. So hit that subscribe button so you don't miss an episode.
Second half opens up with a punt from the Jaguars, a 3-and-out, giving the Dolphins again some life from an offensive perspective, but they go, this is an amazing stat, 6 plays for 2 yards. That took 3:51 off the clock. They did get a first down on this drive, but penalties. Rob Jones on 1st and 10 from the 23. Penalty for offensive holding pushes a 11-yard run from Mostert back. 1st and 20, Tua incomplete to Hill. 2nd and 20, Devon Achane for 7 yards. 3rd and 13, Tua got sacked for a 5-yard loss. Eric Armstead, Dolphins punted away. A 51-yard boot from Jake Bailey. Very nice. Again, as much as I crap on him, he did have
Is Jake Bailey going to get a game ball this week? He might.
Don't tempt me. Don't tempt me. He flipped the field a couple times. Don't tempt me, Mike.
I don't know if I'm ready to give him a game ball, but he will get an honorable mention from us.
Yes. After the Dolphins punt, the Jaguars go 3-and-out. Another holding on 2nd and 10 pushed it to 2nd and 20. ETN gets 7 on 2nd and 20. An incomplete pass forces the punt. The Dolphins get the ball back. Again, another opportunity to do something, and the drive stalls out at the Jacksonville 32-yard line because on 3rd and 16, Tua took an unnecessary sack for a 14-yard loss that pushed them out of field goal range. And Jake Bailey, once again, a 43-yard punt to pin the Jaguars inside the 5-yard line. You figure the defense will come up big. They did not at the beginning of the series. Another big play from the 3-yard line. Tank Bigsby, 26 yards on 1st down, and then Gabe Davis on the right sideline for 22 yards with Kader Kohou in coverage, already in Dolphins territory. Etienne for 12, Bigsby for 7. Jordan Poyer had a face mask penalty, which literally his hand got stuck in the face mask while trying to make a tackle. I believe he's perfectly fine. After the face mask, it's 1st and 10 from the Dolphins 13. Travis Etienne scoots through the middle of the line to the Dolphins 3. A walk-in touchdown taken away, and this is the turning point of the football game when the snowman, Javon Holland, punched the football out of Travis Etienne's arms, and Kader Kohou falls on the ball in the end zone for a touchback. And the Dolphins football game stayed alive because if Etienne crossed that goal line, this ball game was over. Javon Holland with a massive play, Mike.
Yeah, this game would have been over because Miami had no momentum going at all. And that would have been a death knell. But lo and behold, things turn around rather quickly.
They do. And Mike, at some point, we have to get the Kevin Harlan call queued up at some point here on the site. Because
copyrighted. I don't want to get in no more issues with anything. So I don't know if we can do that anymore.
Okay. Well, I can't do a Kevin Harlan impression, but I'll do my best. On 1st and 10 from the Dolphins 20 after the touchback, Tua Tagovailoa had time in the pocket. He's got Hill. 80 yards on the first play, and the Dolphins strike quickly as they did many times last year, getting the ball game back 17-14. I do not get tired of seeing that, Mike. Tyreek Hill from Tua Tagovailoa on the money, in stride, and the Dolphins are in business.
Are we going to talk about the celebration after the touchdown?
I was going to wait until
we can talk about it. We're not going to talk about the incident, but we'll talk about the celebration. So celebration was after Tyreek scores this 80-yard touchdown. He's running through the end zone, and he puts his hands behind his back like he's got handcuffs on. Like he's got handcuffs on because just a few hours earlier he really did.
Oh my God! I said it when it came across my phone. I was stunned. I was like, "Wait, what? He got handcuffed before the game? What's going on?" Immediately brought me back to Scotty Scheffler when he was handcuffed before. It was Augusta, wasn't it?
One of them. I don't know which one. Yeah.
So
because it was in Georgia.
Yeah, and then Scheffler went out and shot a 68 to stay in the hunt for the tournament. So, kind of the same kind of mentality. Tyreek Hill needed this, and in his post-game press conference, he said that he was sluggish in the first half. It was weighing on him. And at halftime in the locker room, he said that Tua called him out in front of the team. And the results now speak for themselves. So that got Tyreek Hill going. It got his head into the football game. And who can blame him, honestly? You're handcuffed and put on the ground before the football game. Your head is elsewhere. You're not.
Yeah, there's a lot being said after the game. We're going to get to it. There's a lot going on right now. Let's get through the game, though.
So the Dolphins getting within 3, the Jaguars. Now, we talk a lot about Mike McDaniel's blunders. Can we please focus on, because I'm going to skip through the first 3 plays because it was 4th and 1 from the Jacksonville 32-yard line. The end of the first quarter happened. I'm like, there's no way they're going to go for it because, you don't want to give the Dolphins the ball in plus territory, especially near the 30-yard line. You're already in field goal range. Doug Peterson went for it.
I have no idea.
And the Dolphins defense did a jailbreak on the play, and it was such a turning point that the Dolphins, all the momentum, fumble, long touchdown, and then you stop them on 4th down in their own territory. The momentum is completely shifted until Jason Sanders, the drive doesn't go anywhere. And Jason Sanders very uncharacteristically shanks a 42-yard field goal, which would have tied the game, and it's still 17-14.
I'll tell you what. Hold on. There's a couple of things here. Number one, look, I'm not a Jacksonville Jaguars fan, so I don't care what they do, honestly. But that call by Peterson, when you have a lead and just look at your opponent that day, up until that point, Miami's offense, aside from one play that went for 80 yards, had done virtually nothing. And you're going to risk giving them the ball back on the plus side of the field for them. For what? Just punt and just let your defense keep going to town on Miami's horrible offensive line. He went for it. It blew up in his face. Now, I saw that field goal, obviously the miss, and I went back and watched it a couple of times. Here's what I think happened. Did Sanders shank? Yes, Sanders shanked it. Clearly, the offensive line, it's not exactly the same offensive line, but the line had a total breakdown. Jacksonville got through so quick that I think Sanders rushed everything because he felt this is getting blocked. And honestly, it could have been blocked. If you go back and watch that field goal, Miami's line broke down, and there was like 3 guys on the left-hand side coming through pretty quick, and I think Sanders saw it and rushed everything and shanked it. Another breakdown on the line of scrimmage. We'll get into more of that as we go on.
Jaguars did nothing after an 11-yard run by ETN to open the drive to the 48. They stall out and they punt the ball to the Dolphins 8-yard line. Dolphins get the ball with 11:06 to go in the 4th. They choose 6:44 off the clock, 12 plays, 73-yard drive. I felt like this is kind of where you got a sense that the Dolphins recapture the momentum. They had some very good plays on this drive. 6-yard run, defensive pass interference helped to get it to the 34. Tyreek Hill on 2nd and 10 from the 34 gets a 21-yard completion. Mostert 6 for to the Jags 39-yard line after a Hill false start. It is 2nd and 9. They get 14 yards from Jeff Wilson, 6 yards from Jeff Wilson to the Jags 24. They get it to the 15. But on the first down play, Tyreek Hill gets called for an offensive holding, pushes him back to the 25, and the drive stalls out. After a 7-yard run, they go short pass, and Jason Sanders makes up for it, hits the 37-yard field goal, and the Dolphins tie the game late 17-17. Now, this particular series reminded me of week 1 last year against the Los Angeles Chargers. After the Dolphins got the touchdown and took the lead, they got after Justin Herbert, forced the intentional grounding. They sacked him, an incomplete pass, and the game changed. Today, 1 year later, Tank Bigsby, no gain. Trevor Lawrence sacked by Emmanuel Ogbah for a 4-yard loss. And then Jaylen Phillips, who got the sack last year against Justin Herbert, gets the sack on 3rd down against Trevor Lawrence to force the punt. But before the punt was a delayed game, so it gave the Dolphins an extra 5 yards, which Braxton Berrios gave back when he was trying to make a nifty move on the sideline, and the Jags gunner shoved a Dolphins player into Berrios to lose 5 yards. You can't make this up. But the Dolphins go 8 plays, 31 yards in 2 minutes and 9 seconds to chew the rest of the game up. Starts with Devon Achane for 4 yards. We get to the 2-minute warning. Tua to Jaylen Waddle on a beautiful completion for 13. Achane loses a yard. Jacksonville takes a timeout. Achane gains 10, very close to the first down marker. But it goes 3rd and 1. Jags take their second timeout. On 3rd and 1, Alec Ingold, 2 yards and a first down. Very good play call. Very smart play call by Mike McDaniel to keep the ball and keep the drive alive. With 34 seconds left, Jeff Wilson went to work and gains a yard on first down. Miami took a timeout on 2nd and 9 to try to get into Jason Sanders' comfort zone. They get it with a 2-yard run with Jeff Wilson to the left. So they're lined up on the left hash after back-to-back timeouts. The freeze timeout from Jacksonville after a Dolphins timeout with 4 seconds left. Jason Money Sanders makes up for the blunder, which again may not be all on him, but he makes up for the blunder and hits a 52-yard field goal, and the Miami Dolphins survive week 1, 20-17. Mike, your thoughts on the final drive of the game?
Yeah, that's exactly what you want. They took the air out of the ball. They didn't try to go for a home run to score too quick, because even as much as the Dolphins were playing better defense in the second half, you don't want to leave them a ton of time here. And it's exactly what was needed. They just slowly, as Hank Stram always once famously said, you want to slowly matriculate the ball down the field. Now, this wasn't too slowly because they had to do it in a couple of minutes, time running out, but they just made the plays. I'll say this, Jeff Wilson runs angry. Man, Jeff Wilson runs angry.
Yep.
Mostert today, again, looked like a guy who did nothing in training camp, and it's going to take time for him to get ready. Jeff Wilson runs angry, and I like that. He hits the hole, and he wants to run through you. I want to see more Jeff Wilson moving forward here. So I thought he was great in this drive. Tua was great in this drive. You know, he didn't try to force anything. He took what was there. That's what you want from your quarterback. Honestly, we haven't spoken about him a lot in this game today, Tua. I'll just say this. You pay a quarterback all that money. You want him to navigate a game like this when everyone's not playing great and just take you to a victory. That's what he did. And that's why you're paying him all that money on a day where, nobody brought their A game. Just bring home a win. I don't care how you do it. Just do it. He did it. And it's a drive like that, which, drives like this, he failed against Tennessee last year. And he failed in games like this last year. Failed week 18 versus the Bills. Didn't fail today. Did not fail today. So
let's go to the team. Let's go to the team stats. First down, Jaguars 17, Dolphins 18. The Jaguars 2 for 10 on 3rd down, 0 for 1 on 4th down. The Dolphins 8 for 16 on 3rd down, 16 3rd down. That's crazy. And they went 0 for 2 on 4th down. Total plays, Jaguars ran 50 plays for 267 yards. The Dolphins 65 plays for 400. 400. When you watched it, if you were watching that game live,
never would have thought.
Way you would have thought they would have had 400 yards of offense, but they did.
You get 80 yards on one play. That does skew it a little.
It helps.
It helps. Yeah, but those yards count. Those yards count. So. Both
teams had 11 total drives. The Jags had averaged 5.3 yards per play. The Dolphins 6.2. It was a game. Again. I crapped on Anthony Weaver's defense in the first half. Man, they came to play in the second half because Trevor Lawrence did absolutely nothing in the second half. He finished the game 12 for 21 for 172 yards. He did have his touchdown. He did not throw an interception. He was sacked 3 times for 23 yards. Tua Tagovailoa, 23 of 37 for 338 yards with the touchdown, 8 yards per attempt. He was also sacked 3 times for 19-yard loss. Rushing, the Jags ran it 26 times, 128 yards, 4.9 yards per clip. The Dolphins 25 times for 81 at 3.2, very uncharacteristic. This is where the game got a little sloppy here in just a second. I'll go through it. The red zones, the Jaguars were 2 for 3. The Dolphins were 1 for 2. Penalties, the Jaguars had 8 penalties for 71. The Dolphins, 9 penalties for 103 yards. That is terrible. Jaguars had the only turnover of the football game. The Dolphins' time of possession, 33 minutes and 10 seconds. Jacksonville, 26-50. It is time for game balls. Mike, who do you have?
I have to give it to Devon Achane because he was such a focal point in this offense today. 7 receptions for 76 yards. Then he was the leading rusher, not yardage-wise, but with work with 10 carries. Only 24 yards, but honestly, nobody ran the ball well in this game behind that offensive line. But he had the rushing touchdown, and he had 7 receptions. It seemed like not every big third down, but on most big third downs, Tua was looking for Achane. Achane was like he was the offense outside of the big play to Hill. And Waddle had some nice plays because he was over 100 too. Achane just seemed like the focal point of this offense. And I said all offseason with Mostert, him getting up there in age, even though they gave him a rework deal, at some point this year, I thought it'd be like October-ish that we're going to see the passing of the torch to Achane being the lead back, Mostert sort of taking a step back. We saw it today. Folks, Devon Achane's the number 1 back in Miami. I don't care who physically starts the game on the first play or who's listed as the first starter on the depth chart. Achane is the man in Miami right now, and that was shown today as he was such a focal point of this offense. He gets my game ball.
My game ball goes to a guy that statistically didn't have a great game, but he was the factor in turning the game around. It goes to Javon Holland. Without his play, the Dolphins would not be sitting here 1-0. So Javon Holland, you get my game ball. And if I was the general manager of the Dolphins, I would be drawing up your new contract because this kid is a stud. He has been a stud. Since he's come into the NFL, he's the most underrated safety in the game. And today showed why he is a vital part of this team. The contract stuff, obviously, I brought up because of the big play he made, but we'll see what happens in the offseason with him. Hopefully they can retain him because he's such a damn good football player. And that play right there showed why.
And honorable mention, Jake Bailey. He's getting an honorable mention from us today. Jake Bailey. This bud's for you, buddy. Okay.
No, seriously.
Seriously, I know.
4 punts. Jake Bailey had today 4 punts. He averaged 49.5 yards per punt.
3 inside the 20.
10 more than his career average.
And 3 inside the 20.
3 inside the 20s, and his long was 57 yards. He did a tremendous job. I tip of the hat to Jake Bailey because as much as we crap on him, he did his part today, even though the Jaguars drove down the field twice when they pinned him inside the 5. That's not going to happen all the time. He did his job. It was a very good showing from him.
More than just a holder. Okay, so closing thoughts here that we sort of didn't talk about. Number 1 on the positive side, the defense in the second half was freaking fantastic today. The second half, that defense gave Jacksonville nothing. When Trevor Lawrence only throws for 162 yards, 12 for 21, that's a good day. And he was at like 120 up until like mid fourth quarter. They slowed him down in the second half. It was great. The defense, the big stop on 4th down, the fumble, forced fumble and recovery, the sacks. The second half of that game, the defense was fantastic.
Absolutely.
Two things not on the positive side. Number 1, and I'm sure he's a nice man. He's got a smoking hot girl, so his life's going good. Braxton Berrios stinks. I mean, the first punt return, it looks like he was running in quicksand. He got no speed at all. He had a drop or 2. The other punt where he just had to step out of bounds, he goes backwards 5 yards. Braxton, Odell Beckham cannot get back soon enough. I know it's at least a month. I don't want to see him they had Tyreek Hill return a punt. Why? I don't know. Probably because they saw enough with the first punt return where it's like, Braxton, You got weights on your ankles? What are you doing? Braxton Berrios, that was not his finest hour. And this offensive line, look, we knew coming into the year, the biggest issue was the offensive line. I don't care what Chris Grier says. I don't care what the bad faith actors out there who run podcasts and write and in the media say, oh, we'll put the number one offense anyways. Oh, you can't have a superstar at every position. Oh, in this style of offense, you don't need a good offensive line. Folks, I always say, don't pee on my leg and tell me it's raining. Do not pee on my leg and tell me it's raining. Robert Jones got called for 2 penalties today and was flat out bad. Liam Eichenberg, he got beat on a couple plays. One was a sack. He was bad. What the Dolphins did this offseason was sacrilegious. These two guys weren't starters last year, but they played a lot because Hunt missed half the season, and Connor Williams went down. Liam's out there. Here's the deal. They failed last year, and the Dolphins, like corporate America, you fail up. When you fail, we give you a promotion. They failed, and they were promoted to starters. I don't know how you fix these issues either. Guys in this league can play or they can't. And I know, I'm more of a Robert Jones fan, so I think that stuff, like penalties, can be kind of cleaned up a little bit. But Tua, in the first half especially, why he had that one pass downfield to Hill that he just missed. And he had a few other passes that are low because he's got no time. And as much as Tua likes to say, I get it out quick, which you do because you have no choice. And if you did have that extra second or half a second, you're going to complete those plays and you'd be a much better player. Not that you're not always great, but you'd be even better than you are, and the offense would run better. This cannot, I know it's week 1. You don't want to overreact. They won the game. But I know, folks, all the disclaimers. If this offensive line, especially those two, continue to play like this, like throughout September, at some point you got to do something. I know Lester Cotton's probably not a good answer, but let's start there. Yeah, this was horrible today. Aaron Brewer, he hasn't played in a month. I'll cut him some slack. I'm sure the hand's not even 100%. I will cut him a little slack. The other two I can't because we've seen it year after year after year after year. And, Chris Grier can sit there and say, we're laughing behind the scenes. You guys are all nervous. We're laughing. Laugh. Because what I saw today, and it's not just one game. For anyone that's just one game, relax. It's year 3, year 4 for these guys of the same thing over and over and over again. So I don't know. I don't know how you fix some of these things. Guys either can play or they can't. And I think those two guys can't play. And you can only hope that they just don't stink as much in future weeks.
Well, the offensive line was bad. The interior of the offensive line was bad. Austin Jackson, Terran Armstead, they're holding their stuff down. I have no issues with them. Just like a lot of the other players, especially on the defensive side of the ball, wide receivers, things like that, that offensive line has not played together at all. So it's going to take some time to get gelling. If they can just be average, that's all I'm asking for is average. This team offensively will still be very, very good. But what we saw today is pressure again 2 seconds after the snap, and Tua has to make those quick decisions, those first read decisions, because he's getting no time. But I do appreciate the work that Tua put in because it looked like he was much better moving around, a little bit faster than he was last year. Obviously, he was still sacked technically 3 times, but really twice. But that's got to get fixed because the Jaguars were moving their blitzers between the A gaps, and they were blitzing up the middle. They were sending, sometimes they weren't even sending guys, but they were collapsing on the interior of that offensive line and putting the pressure on Tua to make those fast decisions. That's why we saw probably a lot of swing passes available because, in my opinion, just again, watching the game live, I think McDaniel knows that the teams are going to be penetrating through the middle of that offensive line frequently. So he is having a guy available to Tua's left or right for him to dump it off as an extension of the ground game. Now, hopefully that changes and we don't have to rely on these sort of things. But I have a feeling we're going to see a lot of swing passes. And if you did not draft Devon Achane to your fantasy football team, shame on you.
Yeah. All right. Now that the game's over, let's talk about the incident.
That's how you feel.
Tyreek Hill incident. And I don't want to spend a ton of time on this because we weren't there. Nobody listening was there. We do not know the true story. Here's what we know as of the time we are recording this. One of the officers, it was just reported after the game, has been put on administrative duties while the investigation is taking place. Andy Slater, Fox Sports South Florida. And this is a guy, Andy, I don't know how this guy isn't like a national reporter. He gets all the scoops. He really does. He put out on social media that Tyreek Hill was detained by police outside Hard Rock Stadium after he was allegedly, keyword allegedly, driving erratically, law enforcement officers told him. Then Hill got out of his car angry, and that's when cops placed him in custody. Then the police let him go. Now, here's the deal. And per Jeff Dart, so look, if he got out of the car angry, shouldn't have done it. Okay. But did the cops need to put him face down on the ground in the cuffs? That seems over the top and unnecessary. No, but I don't know what Tyreek said. And that's the thing. I know everyone listening to this is a fan of the Dolphins. I'm a fan of the Dolphins. And I know your first instinct is, support Tyreek. But we don't know the full story here. And I don't want to come out and give like a half-ass opinion without knowing all the details. But it does seem a little bit over the top to put the guy, face down on the ground, laying flat in handcuffs. And that seemed unnecessary and over the top. Calais Campbell was also detained. He was driving by at the same time, got out to help him. And Calais Campbell said after the game, and I'm going to quote, "For him to put handcuffs on me, I felt some type of way, but that just goes to show how resilient we are. We didn't let it stop us." Calais Campbell's a Walter Payton Man of the Year award winner, an all-around good guy. And again, if Tyreek got out of the car angry and said something to trigger the cops to put handcuffs on him, I don't know. And if that's the case, Tyreek probably should have bit his tongue. But I know Calais Campbell didn't say anything wrong. And for them to put handcuffs on him when he's just there to try to calm down the situation, probably unnecessary. I don't know, man. We've seen so many of these stories. Forget Dolphins. Put Dolphin stuff aside for a second. We've seen so many of these stories in the world about overzealous cops doing stuff. And once again, I'm not blaming the cops because I don't know what Tyreek said. And he might have said something that warranted what he did. And I think that's the problem with this story for most level-headed, rational people who can just take away their fandom for a second. You got two entities, the cops, who I don't want to say nobody. Most people in this country have seen so many videos and things where a lot of bad cops do a lot of bad things, and they don't get the benefit of the doubt anymore because they shouldn't. And then you got a guy like Tyreek who's making headlines every other week since he's been in Miami for silly, stupid stuff. He's got a court date next year in 2025 in the middle of the season. I know a lot of people don't know that or don't even want to think about it, but he does. He has a trial date in the middle of the 2025 season already on the docket. He's going to court for some other stuff. It's like nobody wants to give him the benefit of the doubt. But the thing is, we don't know the whole story. I just thought, you want to write him a ticket, go for it. If he gets out of the car, says you want to put him in handcuffs, go for it. Laying him down on the ground, that seems like a bit much. But again, I wasn't there. I don't know the whole story. And I'm just going to leave it at that. It's just, there's always drama around the Dolphins. I know, everyone just wants to say it was not, and it probably wasn't his fault. I don't know whose fault it was, but he can't even have a quiet Sunday morning on week one, Tom. And it's like, at some point, this stuff has to stop.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't want to speculate too much on what led to everything that happened. Obviously, we have some of the logistics, the he said, she said type stuff so far. The police, the body cam is going to come out, whether it's this week or next. That body cam, after everything is reviewed, is going
Andy
to
Slater will have it.
Oh, yeah.
Andy Slater will have it.
Andy Slater will have it. The frustrating thing is, this is something that happens. A guy who's, clearly Tyreek, if he did something wrong, that's on him. And it seems like he was speeding because it seemed like he might have been a little bit late to work, in my opinion.
But everyone else was late too. Then Campbell, Jonnu Smith,
yeah, there's a lot of guys that were late to work today. But that it's not an excuse to mouth off. However, when you break down the details of it, if he said something and the cop just puts him on the ground, look, this is going to be talked about when there's going to be very little talk about the Dolphins win on national media tomorrow. What is going to be talked about is that image that we all saw this morning. I'm glad it de-escalated. I'm glad Tyreek Hill is okay. Nothing further went on. And it clearly seemed like it was a distraction in the first half. And in the second half, things obviously changed, and the Dolphins ended up winning. So we'll see. We'll have more information as it comes out, but the cop is now on administrative. Basically, he's like Will Ferrell from the other guys. He's now working behind a desk with a wooden gun until this is all done. But
he's pushing paper for a while. Which,
he
might not be wrong.
He might
not be wrong. So I don't want to be.
We don't want to speculate on exactly what happened.
Yeah. Now here's something else that Calais Campbell said after the game. He said he felt, to quote, was a bit extreme to see Tyreek in handcuffs and then to be put in handcuffs himself. He said the reason he was given to why he was put in handcuffs was he was disobeying a direct order, that he was too close to the officers, which again, I wasn't there. I don't know. And when the video comes out, it's like, I don't want to compare it to this because this is probably far more serious. When at the Marino last year, when he smacked the guy up top the head, essentially, then everyone saw the video and everyone saw like 8 of his friends had to hold Tyreek back from going after the guy even more. That video kind of forced a settlement because when it was first, Tyreek just gave a slap to a guy. Why is the guy so upset? Why does he want money? Then you see the video. Tyreek gave him a good slap on the back of the neck, and it took 8 of his friends to hold Tyreek back. And then Tyreek's writing a check to the guy. So it's like, we hear these words until you actually see what happened. I just want a quiet, stinking season. And here's the deal. It's a short week. Thursday night's a spotlight game. And this story's going to transcend sports. Yes, it'll be spoken about on First Take. Yes, it'll be spoken about on Colin Cowherd, every ESPN show. This is a national story because it's the police, it's a black athlete, and it's race. You're going to hear this story on the NBC Nightly News, CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, the New York Times. And with a game on Thursday, we think Amazon's going to talk about for 2 hours before the game. It ain't going to be Jordan Poyer going up against his old team. No. It's going to be, what time did Tyreek leave his house to get to the game? Was he arrested before this game? Let's rehash everything that happened last week. What's any new developments we have today? This story ain't going away. It's going to be out there for a bit. And if the cops are wrong, they should be punished. If Tyreek did something wrong, then he should be. I mean, this is what it is. We don't know.
Yeah, we don't know. But what we do know is that Tyreek Hill channeled his inner Scotty Scheffler for a 7-catch, 130-yard performance and a touchdown, 18.6 yards per reception. Standard Tyreek Hill on the field. I love it. Let's do it on Thursday night against the Bills. Let's get meaningful dub at the beginning of the season. You got to exercise some demons from last year in Week 18. And they got a perfect chance to do it at home under the bright lights. And this is the first test. This is, again, the national media conversation about Tyreek and everything, but also leading up to this game. Can the Dolphins beat a good football team? Can they beat a team in their division that has owned them? If they lose this game, the narrative continues to be the same. If they win this game, the narrative can change. That is basically what it boils down to. Change the narrative. Beat your division. I can't even say rival because they've been beating us 13 out of 13 times. They're not a rival right now. But get a win. Find a way and take 10 days off before flying out west. But big game on Thursday night.
Yeah, I mean, look, if you don't beat the Bills on a short week in your house, when it's not the same team for the Bills. The Bills today, they beat Arizona. Arizona put up a fight. They beat Arizona. They looked okay. But the Bills don't have any weapons. I don't think Dalton Kincaid caught a pass today. I'm going to check on it.
He had 11 yards. He had 11 yards on
it must have happened in the fourth quarter then. Okay, so yeah, because for most of the game, he didn't have a pass. Josh Allen was a one-man show again. You know what the Bills do. We are 2-13 against them in our last 15 games. If you do not beat them at home on a short week, and I know Miami just played sloppy football, they got to figure out this. Here's the thing I would do. Once again, I know Mike McDaniel and me probably don't think about football the same way. Don't go empty backfield set with Tua. You got to leave someone back there to help these guards and help out the center. leave a back in the backfield to step up and pick up a block, because that might give Tua a clean pocket. And I'll say this too. All offseason we heard, this year we got to spread the ball out more. We can't try to force feed Tyreek Hill. I don't care about 2,000 yards. I don't care about 2,000 yards either, but here's what I know. The offense works when you force feed Tyreek Hill. Force feed Tyreek Hill. If he gets 2,000, great. If he doesn't, I don't care. But this whole notion we got to spread it out more, like hell we do. Get the ball to your best players, which are Hill and Waddle, and don't worry about spreading it out more to make everyone happy. This ain't T-ball. Your best player gets the ball. You're paying him all that money. Force feed Tyreek the ball. That's where I was in the second half of this game. I'm like, enough monkeying around. Just let's scheme Tyreek open. Let's force feed it to Tyreek. Let him make a play. And he did. And Tom, as we wrap up this show, we beat the Jacksonville Jaguars, owned by Shad Khan and Tony Khan. I've had this graphic since the schedule came out, and I just want to say, cult of personality, baby. Tony Khan's worst nightmare happened today. The Dolphins win, and we got, if you're watching on YouTube, if you're in audio form, you have no idea what we're showing. Tony Khan's worst nightmare, CM Punk in Dolphins gear. Dolphins win. And I did not want to lose to the Khan family tonight, those goofballs. And they are goofballs. I did not want to lose to them tonight. So Dolphins 1-0, celebrate the win. Thursday, me and Tom will be here late. Going to be a late evening doing the post-game wrap-up show. Dolphins-Bills, that's a big game. It's worth being up late, especially if we win. And if we can get a win, they'll put us at 2-0. No worse than a split with Buffalo. Patriots won today. Very surprising. Cost me money.
Very
shocking. Knocked me out of the survivor pool, too. But okay. Look, I ain't worried about the Patriots. Beat Buffalo.
Yeah.
Beat the Bills. Let's do this.
Absolutely. I would love nothing more than to have that happen.
Now we got to end this because I got to watch Tom Brady call a football game. I've missed I missed all the first quarter and some of the second. I got to hear Tom. Look, Tom Brady's going to be great at this. I just want to hear it. So we're going to wrap up this wrap-up show. Everyone have a great rest of your Sunday. Celebrate the Dolphins win. You got a Victory Monday tomorrow. Have a great rest of your Sunday. We'll talk to you again on Monday. We'll have shows on Monday. Short week. We're going to cram in a lot of shows. Myself, I know Tom will have his solo show. Myself and Josh Moser have to go Monday this week, not Tuesday. We'll have that. Josh and Aaron are going to have same old Dolphin show. We're going to have a lot of content coming out here in this short week to get you ready for Buffalo. Follow Tom on Twitter at DolphinsTalk Tom. Follow myself at DolphinsTalk. Go to the website, DolphinsTalk.com. DolphinsTalk Extra. Got a few new people sign up today. Patreon.com/DolphinsTalk. Do that. We'll talk to you again after a while. And everyone, please don't forget, we must put an end to highway profanity.
Hands up.